And here we are back in the studio, and with me is a London-based Heather de Cruz Cornier. So tell us about your practice. You call yourself the cafe coach. Does that mean you work in cafes?
It's called Cafe Coach because my approach to coaching was a disruptor in 2008. Nobody was coaching in cafes or doing informal coaching. Um, so it was a disruptive approach, a bottom-up approach to access individuals who perhaps were not getting the performance management in the workplace. And so that it would be a neutral place for coaching to take place. And nothing is better than having a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and a piece of cake and opening up about what you might like to change about your life, either work or privately. And so that's how Cafe Coach was born. And that's why I patented it. So it's actually, I've got a registered trademark because everybody now has a coaching cafe or they do something in cafes, but mine was the original in 2008. So that was why I trademarked it.
Oh, that's a really smart move. So the idea of a cafe is comfort.
It's comfort, it's neutral, it's where people go to talk. If you look on continental Europe, because I'm in the UK, there is a huge cafe culture and it's where people go to talk. And it's comfortable, it's anonymous, it can be anonymous. It means that nobody at work knows that you're engaging coaching services. And it's a third party bricks and mortar, which means that for a coach having a private practice, because we didn't have remote working then, for a coach, it meant that those costs didn't have to be passed onto the service. And also we noticed in London, certainly, despite not having a coffee culture, we have more of a coffee culture now. What we noticed was, you'll love this one, Stephen, we noticed that a lot of interviews and performance reviews were taking place in cafes, at Starbucks, in Costa Coffee, because it was felt that maybe it would be a little bit more relaxed. You could have a coffee and a cake or a muffin or something. And so with all of that in mind, and having lived in Japan where space costs a lot of money and is a premium, that's where I did my coaching when I started working in Japan. And I just thought it was a smart idea.
Oh, it's
I'm going
interesting.
to copy your idea for Latin America, and I'm going to call it cantina coaching. So we have a beer or a
As
tequila.
long as it's not tequila coaching,
No,
because that
tequila. Wine.
yeah, it's the thing is, it's now I'm not really cafe coach because I don't really coach in cafes anymore. And I was putting on too much weight because I was eating coffee and cake every time I met a client. So it actually backfired. So it was terrible. So yeah, I do have a sweet tooth. So and now with remote operations, there's no real need to meet in cafes. But there's still a big cafe coaching culture, especially in Asia, where you can do great workshops and meet people in if we have a group of cohort of arrivals in London, we'll meet in a huge London cafe and have croissants and cappuccinos, and that helps to break the ice and it gives a neutral setting for to talk about the experience of relocation and things like that.
And
You know,
usually in that kind of a table environment, you talk quietly. You're expected to talk quietly rather than
Yeah,
tell the table next to you.
yeah, we usually find a corner and then we make a little nest, we make a little area for ourselves. So yeah, it's everything there's all sorts of consents that take place, especially because of confidentiality. So yeah, I do have a big disclaimer on my contracts.
Yeah, that's great. So Stephen, Professor Ben is coming in,
okay.
and he's going to do some kind of an interactive thing, which he'll tell you more about. It's all about mastering global mobility for 2025, and that's the extent of my knowledge right now. So I don't have a master's degree in that. So Christian's going to join us here in just a minute. Hello,
Hey,
Christian.
there's my
Oh,
buddy.
hi, good to see you.
Yeah, good to
Ed,
see you as well.
are we being recorded?
Yes, be
Yes, we
careful
are.
Oh,
what you
Yeah,
say.
okay,
yeah.
I gotta behave then. So nice to see you all.
Yeah. How are things with you, Christian?
They're going good. They're going good. I'm in an interview stage with two different companies, so we'll see what happens. But things are moving on my end.
So when you go to Paris with your family, are you going into the church, Notre Dame?
I will, yeah, if at
Oh,
all
lucky
possible. That's
you. It looks
something I really want to do.
beautiful. Boy,
Yeah, I'm today's the 12th, so 19th, yeah, 8 days from now, I'll be on the plane to Paris.
very nice. Very nice.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So Joanne and I were in Paris and we went into the church um, about 2 weeks before the fire struck.
Wow.
I know, so it's really been interesting to see all this happen, and the films that I'm seeing, the video, it's just gorgeous.
Hmm. Yeah,
What
I can't wait to see it. As we
a
were
result?
walking around it, there were all these, when we were in Paris in April, there were all these um, charts and pictures and showing all these artisans, using these medieval techniques to put it all back together. But you couldn't see anything yet at that time.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I can't wait to see what they've done.
yeah. It's really good. Ron, we're recording, just having locker room talk here.
No, thank you. How much time do we have, Ed? Because I want to offer a perspective for Stephen.
Oh, you have plenty of time.
Okay.
Yeah, the professor, Ben, it will be arriving in about 10 minutes, and we'll
Okay.
let him go first, and then Stephen will conclude.
All right. Stephen, just my perspective. You mentioned the 600 employee company and the CEO was unaware of. He can't be aware of. Well, I'm going to just make a perspective, and I would certainly welcome your comment. Know your numbers. In the context of know your numbers, retention rates, that's one thing. And yes, at some point, the profits may be there, but can you increase the profits of if you have this psychologically safe culture in your company? How many, I would be interested in knowing in the maybe teams, divisions that have let's say a lot of drama. Just curious, how much litigation do you have and the like? But I think these are these are some of the things that the CEOs need to be aware of from the top down. And if he or she has team leads who are not ascribing to the CEO's values, I think that CEO needs to speak with that person and just see where they are. But that is my perspective, Steve, and I'm very welcome at any time to listen to your perspective.
Well, thanks, Ron. No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's Situation is a company that was founded about 20 years ago by 4 partners, and they've actually just sold out to an private equity investment company. But it has a family feel to it, even with the 600 employees. It's just that, they've got 1 or 2 leaders in there that run their business units kind of harshly. And the CEO is aware of that. He's aware of some of the drama and conflict. Actually, I've actually been brought in to conduct some drama conflict resolution with one of the teams. So he's aware of it, but he's not the kind of person who's going to step in and say, either change or you're out. So
No, and I don't advocate that at all, Stephen. If they're making progress, if the CEO believes they're on the upward movement, making progress, okay, hey, yeah, that's I'm fine with it.
No, they're making progress. They're highly profitable. They're ridiculously profitable, quite frankly. They're very strong in their niche that they're in. They're actually expanding geographically now because of the private equity injection that they sealed about 5-6 months ago. So, there's no perfect workplace. So that's I think part of my point is, whereas yes, ideally he would step in and say, oh no, this is unacceptable. Everyone has to, blah, blah, blah. He's not going to do it. And the other two people running their particularly business units, which are both profitable and both growing dramatically, he's not going to step in and change it. He's going to say, solve it the best you can. And, if people don't want to work here because of conflict, let them leave. We'll replace them. So that's what my point is that it doesn't always have to come from the top. My point is that even if it doesn't come from the top, at the individual level, the 3 or 4 business units that I'm personally coaching, man, they're running all cylinders. They've got collaboration, they've got innovation, they've got respect, they've got
that one.
employee loyalty, and it works with them. So
yeah, and I certainly agree, Stephen, that leadership can occur at any point, and there's some leaders who are, if not reticent, they are of a reserved personality, and they're not going to be, out front. And I'm not an advocate of being in your face, but again, as long as that CEO has the courage to address what we're talking about, I think that's what needs to be done. And certainly there's no perfect environment. That's why I advocate having an environment where we can discuss, and we may need to reframe any problems we're dealing with such that there's a better global solution to it. So we're always working towards something better. Anybody and everything, every process can be improved if we all at least generally agree to that.
So everybody, this is Professor Ben Bader. Hello, Professor. Welcome.
Good morning, afternoon, whatever it is, evening.
Yes. Now you are in Newcastle. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Yeah. And so I wanted you to meet Heather. She's in London.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Benjamin. We meet at last.
Yeah. So you've been communicating, right?
Well, Benjamin has a forum which I joined, and I found out about it via Christian, because Christian, obviously who I met with you on your Talk TV show, introduced me to some of the work that Benjamin was doing, and so I joined the forum, but I haven't met him or seen him in person.
I'm doing some
Chris
link
is a
making
good
myself.
networker. Exactly.
Yeah, and this is Dr. Ken Lloyd. Say hello to Professor Benjamin Bader.
Professor, nice to meet you.
I can.
Yeah, Ken is in LA. He's an author of a brand new book, Professor, just so you know. I know you can't see it too well here. Ken, I welcome you to use my screen share if you want to show that. And Stephen Howard is a good friend and longtime author, has published 27 books on leadership. And he's going to follow you in the closing keynote. And he's going to be, I know you can't see it too well here. Stephen, you're going to have to display your cover better than I'm doing here. Humany. Why don't you just explain to Professor Ben what humany is as a prelude to your closing keynote, Stephen?
All right. Well, humany is a word I created, having a glass or maybe the whole bottle of wine on my balcony one night, watching the sun go down. I combined humanity, and harmony, and created the word humany. And what I'll be talking about after your presentation, Dr. Bader, is the previous book, which is called Humany Leadership. So I'll be talking about humany from a corporate leadership or organizational leadership standpoint. But the book Ed just showed you is, I've now recently published a book called Humany Mindset, which I've extended my concept of humany beyond the workplace to all of our interactions with individuals on a person-to-person basis, trying to help us get past this divided society or divisive societies that we live in around the world, not just the United States, but around the world that I've seen. And so that's the concept of the humany mindset.
Oh, there it is. And welcome, Ali.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good,
Hi,
good,
Ali.
good. So Ali is in Seattle area. And Ali, have you met Heather?
Yes, yes, I sure did. Yeah, how you
Good,
doing, Heather?
I'm
good.
very well, and I wanted to say I have bought the book. I ordered it on Amazon, and my husband snaffled it. There's a lovely word, Christian. Do you
I
love that
love
word?
it. Love it.
Snaffle. He snaffled the book because he said it was more important for him in the work that he does than the work that I'm doing at the moment. So I will get to it, but yeah, it's disappeared.
That means that both of you have to write reviews on Amazon for us.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
we're coming
yeah,
out.
it's the how to do business, with in America. So yeah.
Okay, well, that one is this
Very
one.
cool.
Yeah. Ali, do you have this book handy? You can hold it up better than I can, I think.
Yes, I do. So here, let's see.
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Now two of us.
Is
Look
that
at a dual screen. There we go.
Can I show how to do performance appraisals in America?
Oh, yes, yes.
Hi,
Yeah.
son.
In fact, why don't you get ready to do that? But we have to watch the clock here. So on page 127, Ken,
I don't have it committed to memory. Yeah.
no, it's chapter 6, the best phrases for collaboration, communication, and interpersonal skills. I would think that would go a long way towards creating an atmosphere of safety.
Oh, absolutely. Collaboration. We all know we know from our readings, discussions, and certainly in this morning's sessions, collaboration is a critical element in building individual as well as organizational success. And as such, it seemed to be a good factor to include. It was not in the original version that I wrote of performance appraisals and phrases for dummies 15 years ago. But as the process of appraisals has certainly changed over the years, that as a topic, as a central point in effectiveness in today's workplaces, certainly seemed worthy of inclusion. So I put a number of points in there regarding collaboration, certainly aligning with, I think, the comments of looking around the group of all of our group and reading about Benjamin. I know that ties in with some of his interests as well. So yeah, that is a key area for success at work in every respect.
And I want you to meet Ron Cooper, professor. Ron is in Washington, and he has a very successful consulting business. And prior to that, Ron Cooper was in the Air Force, and as an officer, a commander, I guess, squadron jet fighter squadron, and actually was a model, in my view, of the Tom Cruise character.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it. Professor Ali, it's great to meet you and good to be with the rest of the group. And Ken, just very briefly with your comment about collaboration, I think of that, the mindset is to a mutual benefit. And if the mindset is collaboration to a mutual benefit, then hey, we're going to work well together.
Great. Okay, we're joined from welcome, Yvonne Quay. I can't hear you. You on mute?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
No. Hello.
Okay,
Good
good.
evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are.
I know, it's really strange. Are you in Paris?
No, I'm not in Paris. No.
No. Where are you located today?
Today,
Yeah.
I'm in Devon on the border with Geneva.
Ah, that's got it. Okay, good. Okay, this is Professor Benjamin Bader, who's going to speak now about global mobility and about mastering global mobility, and your experience in the Res Forum and that kind of thing. And Yvonne has been a speaker on our show several times. She's the author of a best-selling book called Whose Career Is It? Yours, Mine, or Ours? And Heather is holding it up, but we can't see it too well. Okay, there it is. And this is all about the dual career dilemma. And that was discovered from her work over the years inside the World Bank Group in Washington, and trainer, manager of the World Bank group Family Network, which has high-powered couples and who are sent on assignment, and that's the dual career dilemma right there, right, Yvonne? Yeah, you're on mute.
Not a dilemma
Oh,
that's
okay.
about to go away either, you know.
Yeah, seems that,
In fact, I think it will become more
yeah, right.
important rather than less important.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you for joining us. Okay, Professor, tell us about your day job as a professor, and then let's get into
The endeavor.
mastering global mobility.
Well, thank you everybody for joining today. Well, first of all, I'm impressed. Like 25% of the audience is artificial intelligence, because we got 4 different note takers in here, which is brilliant. So we should compare notes after this one. It's fascinating. So no, yeah, my role as a professor is pretty much as you would expect, that I'm a professor of international human resource management, Newcastle University Business School. So it's university. It's a Russell Group university. So the um, I comparable to the Ivy League, if you will. Like, it's not really comparable, but like the um so this is going to be on YouTube, so it's going to be careful I said. It's the Russell Group. Look it up. It's good. The business school is triple accredited, and we are providing the teaching across all different areas of undergrad, postgrad, taught, and postgrad research management. And we are, in particularly, we are proud on our Masters in Global Human Resource Management program, which I'm currently a degree program director, and in that role, like, that's the teaching component. But of course, as a professor, our job is also to do research, to publish in journal articles. I didn't know this is a book club, because otherwise I would have brought a copy of our previous version. But next year we're going to be publishing Strategic International Management, which is 4th edition now, and published with Springer as a textbook, text and cases. So it's going to be, well, hopefully dropping sometime mid next year. And yeah, so that's the one side. The other side is I've been working with, well, a lot of organizations, people in around global mobility, in consulting projects and research projects in all different areas, and I found the industry very fascinating, and the people very lovely. So that got me, was staying basically in on that side of things. And part of the things we do at Mastering GM, which is co-founded with Michael Dickman, colleague from Cranfield University, is pretty much looking into how we as professional educators can help and work with GM professionals. So we've got different kinds of tools. What Ed kindly put on the website is a Wave Trade Navigator. The Wave Trade Navigator is an individual level assessment to assess in-house global mobility professionals on the WAVE dimensions. Now, if you don't know what WAVE is, Christian, I know you do, because you've been an early adopter and on board a long time ago. The WAVE framework is basically our approach to differentiate global mobility, to go away from this one big animal thinking into a more fine-grained approach. So you need a cool acronym these days, which is WAVE, and WAVE stands for Workforce, Adaptability, Value, and Engagement. Now, in the sense that global mobility is understood outside GM, is pretty much sometimes it's reduced to household goods moving, shipping. Sometimes it's reduced to visa sorting, these kind of things. But what it really is unfortunately often ignored, forgotten, whatever. But in order to tackle this and then to be more precise in terms of what we're working on, we create this framework. And these 4 dimensions, workforce, adaptability, value, and engagement, spans up a 2x2 matrix. So on the x-axis, we'll look at the focus scope. So everything that is internal in GM and everything that's external to GM. Now, when I say external, that could be within the organization, but it is outside the mobility function. So internal, external. That's a crucial differentiator when it gets to looking into questions around how GM is seen in the organization, how mobility programs are, well, kind of financed, resourced in a particular way, but also it goes, of course, outside the organization, vendor, supplier management, all these kind of things. And on the y-axis, we look at the strategy orientation, and that is looking at the processes and the people to separate that. These 4 dimensions, so internal, external, processes, and people, breaking it down makes it a lot easier when you dive into a particular field of GM, because it's very rare that you're really actually tackling GM as a whole. It's either you look at the people, or you look at the processes, or you look at the engagement outside of GM, or you look at the workforce within GM, as in the people you move around the world, those kind of things. So this helps to differentiate that. And what we have seen when we created this framework is that after working in the industry over many years with these dimensions, we spotted something that we then translated into the Wave Trade Navigator. And that spotting something is a typology, or how you put your personal unique GM type. So in other words, we say that on each dimension, for every in-house GM professional, some things are more natural than others. Neither is better or worse. But if I give you the engagement dimension as an example, so we differentiate between balancer and networker. So balancer, so bear in mind that we're on the external people dimension. A balancer is typically focusing on maintaining the connections they've got, on the network they've got, so everything that's built already, and kind of invest their time and energy there. A networker, on the flip side, is in general more looking outward to their networks, so reaching out to new people. A link maker, if you will, kind of always get more people, newer collections in there, and everything in between is a continuum. Value dimension, that is processes and the external demonstration of value. We've got sustainers and creators. So sustainer is more natural to create and demonstrate the value based on the processes that are there and existing things, which is not it's kind of, it makes a lot of sense. To some people, it's more natural. Some people, a creator is more open to trying new things, to create and demonstrate value based on new programs, new processes, and things like that. And again, anything in between. And same for the other 2 dimensions. So harmonizer, innovator on the workforce dimension, and organizer, flexor on the adaptability dimension. So that's the continuum for each dimension. And based on this, we created a very detailed assessment with our research behind. So we've got this tool called Wave Trade Navigator on individual levels. So you as an individual GM professional would answer these questions, and then it gives you your type. And the fascinating thing is, we've got a lot of data at this stage, because more and more people doing that. Roughly half of people are of the same type. They are very similar on these dimensions. We got 16 possible types, and about half, so 45%, are very, very similar. There's within the types, there's kind of, it's not all exactly the same, but it's very, very similar. And the other 50% are all across the board. That's super fascinating. So to them, it's more natural. And the question is, what do you do with that knowledge, and how can you approach that? It's very helpful to create this awareness to understand how people approach mobility. Because if you're working, whether it's a supplier, or whether it's in-house, or whether it's an SME, when you know what's natural to the mobility manager you're dealing with, it's a lot easier to understand where they're coming from, what they're trying to do. And now for us as professional educators, it's very helpful to know that. So if I know that you're a sustainer, I have the information that I better approach you in terms of value demonstration by focusing on what's more conservative to you. When I know you're a creator, I know I can try different things to help you to point out that value. And so we created this tool, put it out there, and have it up and running. And in all the work that has been put in there, the next step is the Wave framework as an organizational tool. So this one is personal, it's you as an individual. And of course, you can apply the Wave framework also on organizational level. Tool is not out there yet. It's gonna be released sometime next year. But that is basically looking at the organization, how the organization is structured, how the organization creates value, and so on. These kind of things are gonna come. And the dimension that resonates with most people quite directly is the value dimension. And that's not particularly surprising. So I assume like all of you with the tremendous experience in the mobility field is you're very aware of the problems with mobility in terms of that there is clearly a lot of value to it. Why? Because if you well, firstly, if there wasn't value in GM, organizations would just cut it, so we wouldn't have these departments. But what the value exactly is, that is the real problematic thing, like how to pinpoint it, how to break it down to demonstrate the value. Because for the outside world, GM is often seen as a cost factor. So the 5-minute warning ad.
No, I've got a question because you're talking quickly, and I'm trying to process all of this. And let me ask you a question about the yin and the yang, the left and the right. So can you identify characteristics of each side?
Yes.
And
Yeah, of course, that's what the tool does.
Is there a continuum that the same characteristics show up in each of these angles that you've described?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So that creates value right there.
Well, no, yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. But
yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say it creates value. It's the prerequisite to create value out of that. So
yeah. Oh, okay.
that's the thing, like how to best use your resources. But when you look at the value of mobility in general, and the thing we always see the tendency to see mobility as a cost factor, that is highly problematic. So I'll give you an example. Like you've got the GM department and you've got international moves. So you get an invoice. I mean, first of all, you got to pay everybody's salary every month, like all the overhead. So that's a cost factor. Now, looking at different moves, like you get an invoice for you pay for the selection process. You get an invoice for the language training. You get an invoice for the pre-departure cross-cultural training. You get an invoice for the actual move. You get an invoice from the DSP when you have services abroad delivered. You get an invoice for the extra housing. You get an invoice for the increased salary if you're adjusting the salary. So everything costs. So from a CFO perspective, for instance, mobility is a cost factor and the value is implicit. So you have to do it as kind of like, yeah, we send people around the globe for various reasons. Sometimes companies have a very good strategy, whether they go for developmental assignments or for just post-filling assignments. So they have a strategy, some don't have a proper strategy. But either way, it's a cost factor. So the CFO, it's very natural to say, hi, cut down the costs. So go for the cheaper shipping provider. Choose a cheaper DSP, or even better, don't use any DSPs at all, because like they can make their way around. Problem with that is bad assignee experience, employees wasting their time with useless crap, employees being unhappy abroad. I mean, just Christian is loving. I mean, if you move to Germany not being a German, I mean, German Einwanderung and Meldegesetz, like things like that. Just try to figure out as a not German what it means to be registered in Germany, how it works. Like if this is done for you, that's brilliant. Or try to like move to a different country, no credit history, because banks are not global these days, apparently. So problematic. Get a car and try to get a deal on a car, because if you know you're going to be for 2 or 3 years, maybe you don't want to buy it, maybe want to lease, whatever. All these kind of things. It's time and resource consuming and weight of the assignee. You can purchase these services and make sure the employees goes to work straight away and feels happy and is productive, or you don't do that. And people are going to waste their time. Schooling, sort the schooling. If there's children, partner support, you can sort that. You can create a great experience. That's fantastic. And then employees are productive. But you don't get credit for doing that as a GM in-house professional. That's great. We send somebody on a really, really nice paycheck and they're working from day one on the job what they're supposed to do. You don't get a credit for that. On the flip side, if they're unhappy, you don't get an invoice for dissatisfaction. You don't get an invoice like take to the worst level, like they're really frustrated, quit the assignment 6 months later and leave for a competitor. You don't get an invoice from the competitor that they basically stole one of your great employees. And the reason why they left is really they felt left alone, the assignment was managed poorly, all these kind of things that happen on, unfortunately, a daily basis, and that are victim to cost cutting because you save on the wrong end. But again, the lack of the value demonstration towards the outside world or inside organization world, to the board, to the CSO, and so on. That's something that's highly problematic. But I say this is the responsibility of the GM professional. So it's, I mean, I hear so often that GM is not strategic. So it's too operational. And I mean, I get that. Like, it's, you can easily be dragged into operational tasks, because especially the way I've got to know the industry, so many so caring people, helpful people, they want to do a fantastic job, and then you simply don't have time to be strategic. I absolutely get that, but it's a catch-22 situation. So if you actually want to be more strategic, if you want to be a seat at the table, the reality is that you have to ask for the seat, and in order to get the seat, you have to give credible reasons why you deserve the seat. And one thing you can do is actually demonstrate the value, put it in numbers. Now, you may say, I mean, the holy grail of GM, return on investment. It's incredibly hard. I get that, right? To break it down to percentages. And I'm not asking that you have to go to like the 2 digits after the comma return on investment, but an approximation would be nice to get a rough idea whether mobility programs are actually profitable. And that relates to the connection between organizational goals, GM goal, HR goals, GM goals, and then personal goals. So why are you sending employees abroad? What do you want to get out of it? Is it really that you send somebody abroad to develop them, their leadership skills, get them out of the comfort zone, get them kind of like prepared for the next bigger role? That's a completely different approach to GM versus sending somebody abroad to get a job done, or sending somebody abroad to exercise control of the organization. All these kind of things. Some companies have clear strategies, some don't. Some organizations track some metrics, others don't. Performance management, big issue. We published a study comparing US, Germany, and Japan. And the or better non-integrated performance management of expatriates, and it's kind of shocking how the idea of having top people going abroad working for the company, but having completely different performance measurement standards in 2 countries within the same organization, and not having that integrated and not feeding into the talent function, is highly problematic. We've seen it across the board. It's just, there's a lot of room for improvement, and this automatically means you can't really demonstrate the value of mobility. Because if you don't have this information, if you're just doing your job and you're very operational, you can do the best you want. Like, you will always be perceived operational. And with that in mind, what I have prepared for today, but that is, so, I mean, as you know, like originally this was scheduled to be at HSBC with a lot of in-house. But is there any in-house mobility professional in here?
There were earlier, and there will be watching this later.
Okay, well then it's not gonna fly. No, what I have, we have a brand new tool. It's called the Global Mobility ROI Readiness Score, where you can, and like it's an assessment. You complete that on behalf of the organization. It's a very specific set of questions. What it does, it gives you your readiness score as in an overall score, but it more importantly breaks it down to 5 sub-dimensions. So the first dimension is cost preparedness. So are you in a way to actually ensure that you have the numbers? So it's kind of, do you understand what it means to manage the costs that are associated and the resources that are allocated to any particular move? Because that is the prerequisite. So the financial impact you're having, the invoices you get, you need to have a very good understanding of where this goes. And then the next dimension is performance metrics in place. So do you track success? I mean, first of all, do you define success? One of the biggest questions in GM and research is failed assignments. What's a failed assignment? So Anwar Hartzing published a paper on that in the 90s. At that time, even criticizing the approach as a premature return being a failed assignment, because it's not. I mean, it can be, but it doesn't have to be. There's so many more ways to approach failed assignments, and yet most organizations we've been working with on that particular topic are very much struggling, or even just consciously avoiding to use the term failed assignments because you don't want to stigmatize people on these kind of things. So failed assignment, successful assignment. Question, is it a continuum? So is a failed assignment the opposite of successful assignment? Or is it maybe a spectrum? Depends. Organizations need to make their mind up. And then performance as in, what do you expect from your employee abroad? And do you have this metrics? Do you have an idea of that? Do you track it? And what does that mean? Third dimension, satisfaction and feedback. So are you actually collecting this information that makes sure that all the stakeholders involved in your mobility program have their say? So is it flowing into a continuous improvement process, or are you just, well, at the end of the day, sending out your annual engagement survey that, as we know, like, people answer more or less, looking for a nice way to say half-ass, but and then you get the data and then nothing happens for another year before you send it out again. You didn't really differentiate. Fourth dimension, business outcomes. So I said it before, the goal alignment is absolutely fundamental. So seeing the mobility function as a contributor to organizational success means the goals of the organization need to be in line with the mobility goals. In other words, mobility is there to serve the organizational goals. Is it aligned? Does mobility actually contribute and measure the outcomes that you wanna achieve as a business? So if the business strategy is growth, we don't care about making money for now. We just want to be expanding in different markets. We want to have a footprint there. That's a completely different approach than if you strategically position yourself in existing markets maybe and want to increase your presence, or you want to make money. I mean, neither of this is better or worse. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is you have to be absolutely clear in mobility what the business strategy and the business goal is, what the outcomes of the organization are, what they're trying to achieve, and how mobility then can contribute to achieving these outcomes. And the final dimension, of course, is retention and career development, especially when we look at the disconnect between talent and mobility in many organizations. You've got great talent programs and you've got great mobility programs, and the left hand is not knowing what the right hand is doing. There's a disconnect that can be very problematic. So the question is, do you want to have this connected? I mean, if you don't want to have it connected for whatever reasons, so be it. But at least it needs to be a conscious decision, and not the fact that there's just two organizational entities moving in different directions for no apparent reason. So, do you have this information? Are you tracking retention rates? Is retention something you want? I mean, hopefully, if you have well-performing employees and you know they're doing great, hopefully you want to retain them. But I mean, maybe sometimes you don't want retention. If you're shrinking, that's a different story. And then the other part, career development. How does mobility contribute to developing individual careers? We know as protein career theory is, well, not particularly new anymore, but basically it postulates that every individual these days is managing their own career. So back in the day, in the heydays of mobility, you started your career in a company, and then 40, 50 years later, we retired in the same company, and the organization was moving you up the ranks. So it was like a very, very straightforward progress. Versus today, you've got so many different approaches to careers, and what used to be a job hopper, because you had a new job every 5 years, 20 years ago, today is very natural. So it's a normal thing. But that, on the flip side, means career perspective from me as an individual may not necessarily be in line with what the organization understands as a career. So in other words, why should they invest in people with international assignments? It's, again, not better or worse either way, but you got to know what you want, what you want to get out of that. And then this very much contributes to the long-term benefits you get out of assignment. Because if you, at the end of the day, if you're developing people for your competitor and it costs you a lot of money, they may do a great job abroad, but when they come back and you lose them, that's a bad investment. Yeah, Ed.
This is a really fascinating look, and I'm really impressed that you got it together. There's so much detail here. What percentage of the companies that you know think the way you do about what they're doing?
In what particular way? I mean, you mean in terms of the return on investment?
Well, yeah, just have the understanding and the perspective the same way that you do
I
about
don't
what.
know.
I mean,
I can,
can you guess? I mean,
no, I mean,
I'm gonna surmise that it's 10%, and the 90% don't know what they're doing.
that's I don't know. I mean, you may be right. You may be right. I wouldn't put it that drastically. I wouldn't say 90% don't know what they're doing. I would say there's a significant proportion of organizations that have room for improvement, and that is maybe the 90+ % dimension. But
And
I mean, everybody
also,
can improve.
some companies do one thing really, really well, and they're not doing
Yeah,
another thing, okay? Because it
yeah,
hasn't come up, or nobody cares, or it's buried somewhere under somebody else's budget, that
yeah.
kind of thing.
Maybe that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of when you say companies, we're talking about very large organization, like 10, 20, 30,000 employees. So it's not the company. It's if you talk to somebody in mobility and the people I exchange thoughts with, like it's a lot. I do feel a lot of them do have this understanding, but the understanding in the organization is not particularly there. And part
Yeah.
of that is also related to the external partners, so the communication between organizational entities and the understanding of mobility in the organization is sometimes problematic, because if you're on CFO and you speak CFO language, you've got a finance background, you've got the bigger scheme of things, and mobility is just there essentially, then you will see there's a cost factor to the point that somebody actually shows you the value. And the CFOs I know, and I've been working with in different regards, they speak a numbers driven language, not the kind of fuzzy and like maybe whatever could be language in terms of developing people. They want numbers, they want percentages, they want data. And if you don't have the data, it's not an excuse to say, well, I will never get it. Like, you can always start with an approximation. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. If you're at square one, just basically put your head in the sand and say, well, where should I start? It's not good enough if you want to demonstrate the value, if you want to make this impact. If
Yeah.
you say, I don't care, like really, it's going to be moving goalposts anyway. We're restructuring every other year, and really all I want to do is live my life, have my job, peace and quiet, like like fly under the radar. Fair enough. Probably what I'm suggesting is not the best strategy. However, if you want to make this impact, if you want to be rewarded, I think you got to start speaking that language, and we can help people doing that in the sense we've got trainings, we've got these tools, and one comparison I made to you, Ed, when we talked a couple of months ago, I always compare global mobility with a football referee, or soccer, as you say in the States. I live in England for too long. So, but the point is, a referee in a match, when did the referee do a great job? Or what happens when the referee did a great job? Nobody talks about them. That's as good as it gets. You do a stellar job and nobody talks about you. However, that one mistake, right, as a Christian, you hopefully relate to that. The Euros last year, was it this year? Was this year? Germany, Spain, penalty. It should have been a penalty, but ref decided against it. Now it's one mistake. Brilliant performance otherwise, but one mistake, and you are a loser basically. You're heavily criticized. So the as good as you can get is like they don't talk about you. And the worst is like you blame for everything that
So
happened
I want to
eventually,
jump
although
in
it was
here
just one mistake.
and just get Christian's perspective. So, from your memory and practice, and just shoot me down if I'm not on the right track, okay? So, is it your experience that some of your corporate clients handle mobility different because of the line manager that is sending a talent on assignment to achieve something in that country or region? And that line manager is cool guy. It's like the Dr. Ken Lloyd of that division, who's just really smart, very pleasant, always caring, always aggressive. How can we do it better? How can we make that person happier? That kind of a guy or gal with that kind of attitude. And then you get somebody like just say me, okay? And I don't care. It's just a numbers thing. Go over there, don't get in trouble, don't make enemies, and learn something, and then write a report that I could give to my boss that that allocation of money and time and effort is adding value to the company. So there's two different scenarios there. And then what the professor has been describing in minutia is necessary and especially tabulated to understand the complexity and the depth and the scope of this issue in large companies. What's your perspective and your experience, Christian, of was it A or B?
It was a spectrum. It was
No.
definitely a spectrum. And there's many factors as to why it's a spectrum, and it's not just because somebody is cool or not cool, even though I would have loved to work with many Ken Lloyds. It is something that has to do with the industry, their margins, the amount of money they either have or are willing to invest. A tech company will be very different from a retail company or from a hospital, a chain of hospitals, where the benefits are much more minimal because that's just how it is. It will be on a spectrum, and the challenge for the mobility manager who works with that client will be to recognize this, analyze it, translate it into what can and cannot be done, and then come up with solutions that make sense within that environment, right? If you have a program that is capped, where any relocation can't cost more than, say, $20,000, in particular if it's international, you're not going to be able to, bring out Heather and REA and say how much of a benefit this is, even though that's true. It's not what they can't work with that. It's too capped. It's too shrunk. The whole program is too shrunken down for that. So you try to figure out what can be done, though. Maybe you can increase it to 25. Maybe you can get a subset of what Heather or REA can offer. Maybe something that is more self-directed and therefore cheaper. So you kind of chisel at it. It's almost like, you chisel at it to get the optimum result with the amount of money that you got to play with.
So this is the traditional situation. So the new situation, quote unquote, new, and this is to you, Professor, as well as to you, Christian, and everybody who wants to jump in. So under the new thinking, mobility is a kid, young man, young woman with a backpack on, and in it is some clothing and shoes and the computer, and off they go. And they were given, let's just say $50,000. Don't ask for any more money, and
That's
find
a
your
lot.
way. Find your way. Go report to John Jones in London or wherever, and they're going to give you an assignment. And if you want to check it out first, tiptoe in rather than just get on a plane with your backpack, then work remote. You're going to work here in LA, but you're not going to go to London until you can show that you are interested to perform under international conditions. So you're going to work remotely in London, but you're going to be in LA, and you're just going to do computer. And if you do well, and those people like what you're doing, then we'll invest in sending you over to be in their office and go the next step. Professor, is that rational? It sounds like it's
Well,
wrong.
yes and no. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a market. If I'm the talent you're talking about, and I've got other offers, know my value, and I'm good at what I do, I will also add. That's a kind offer. Give it to somebody who cares. If I'm desperate, I would say, okay, well, either this or I don't know, back to school, whatever. I may take it. I mean, the virtual part. Some people actually prefer working at a distance for various reasons. That's a big topic. It's coming along with all the sort of compliance issues, by the way. What you're suggesting here, but it really depends on the job, the person, the integration of the team. I think remote work is great. Can has a great number of benefits. Work from anywhere, but at the same time, it comes at a cost, and the cost is not just financial. So I got to go in like 4 minutes just as announcements when I hop off. Yeah, does it answer your question? Was not a satisfying one, I know, but there's
No,
no right or wrong.
that's the complexity of the problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yvonne, I know you're itching to talk.
I just had a very interesting a question that sparked for Professor Beta, and that is, it sounds almost a little bit like the MBTI framework for organizations to evaluate, because you said 16 types. Now, would you use that to actually choose your team in the first
No.
instance?
No,
No?
I would not use it to choose my team, because I'm not. I mean, I'm familiar with the MBTI. I mean, that's what you get. I've got a 2x2 matrix. It's just math. And then a 3x3 matrix would be too complex. No, the thing is, like, I would not necessarily choose the team, because it is self-rated and it's an approximation, it's preferences, and I'm not a friend of putting people in boxes. I think it's one tool in many to help get an understanding, but rather than as a selection tool, I would use it as a working on the go tool to better understand how people work, not as a selection tool. As much money as there may be in there selling it, but no.
Ali,
No, because that's why I was just wondering too, because when you think of
No.
MBTI,
No,
and
but
encouraged
just
to
like in the MBTI,
get
there's no
your
right or
shadow.
wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is no right or wrong. So I wouldn't use
exactly.
the MBTI for hiring either, right? So whether you're extrovert or
No, I
introvert
wouldn't. Yeah,
is
you're
not
right.
better or worse.
Ali, can you fly a plane with all that?
You can, if you're careful, you can take off, fly, and land. First of all, good morning, good evening, everybody. I did not get the chance to say that I had the opportunity of meeting and learning from everybody on the in here, except without the titles, Ben and Yvonne. So it's good to be here. Just want to tell you something. If you see that I'm talking slowly, normally you'd use my Lebanese American hands go over the place. I was invited for a lunch meeting yesterday. And if you ever visit Seattle, just tell me. I would love to give you the advice not to go to that restaurant, because apparently something happened, and I'm dealing with so stomach. I don't know what was. It was a good restaurant from the outside. Looks really good. So yeah. A very fascinating discussion. Oh my goodness, I don't know where to start. There's so many different gems that Bam discussed, and also with the comments and the great questions. This is so powerful for companies that really want to be successful. And back to what Ben mentioned is, what does success look like? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to be a tactical or strategic, or both? My experience has been, I want both. I just don't want to just be tactically doing things and not look for the future, right? It's so powerful, but unfortunately, as Christian mentioned, it's across the spectrum of people that look at what is this? Is this an important thing? We sit down and we talk and we strategize and we look at things. We're outside the kitchen, but once you're in it, it's difficult. A lot of companies have difficulty to stop and think how we think. And let's think how we do things and how do we feel about certain situations and working with companies. So it's so powerful that only, smart companies, smart leaders will say, stop what you're doing. Let's think about this. Let's just make the right, like you mentioned, Ed, about do I need to try somebody just for several months to see how they work with somebody from Singapore, and later on, decide if I want to just send them, to work. So yes, so strategically, it's really important. I mean, in my case, when I have people, bring employees to my organization, and I'll just wait for several months to see how they're interacting with folks from their own culture, from their own, their colleagues. And if they're having difficulty communicating with someone who has the same culture, speak the same language, and how in the world I'm going to expect them to go and be successful working with other cultures? It's just not, it's walking to running. You can, if I'm seeing you having difficulty walking, how in the world I'm going to see you going running? So, but there are times, and so it will be just a little bit until the pass. Okay, this person has good communication skills, good emotional intelligence skills that, okay, now I can send them. I'll send them right away. There's nothing better than putting them for like 2 months, 2 weeks, only 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be for a long time. See how they react. And a lot of people, they're all under the gravity of the corporate culture. And we've seen it. You probably have seen people that they are awesome working with everybody else. But once they cross the border, all of a sudden their true self. And I can tell you stories that was great stories and terrible stories, just of people get out of that gravity and all of a sudden their true self show up, and it's like, oh my goodness, I thought I was doing the right thing. So like I said, there's so many great things that was brought up today, that I'm waiting for the opportunity to be able to share some of the experiences or perspective from working in this industry for almost 30 years.
Stephen, the mic is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, everybody. I'll see if I can pull up the slides here. Yeah. So it's my pleasure, and thank you for the opportunity, Ed. And it's my pleasure to kind of summarize a lot of what was discussed today, which is very interesting because it really leads to my philosophy about how leadership has changed coming out of the pandemic, continues to change. And we saw that in the Radical presentation about some of the projections or predictions about how the workplace is changing. So I want to talk to you, though, about mindsets today and how our leadership mindsets can either elevate performance or it can put a stop on performance, can top it off. And, we talked a lot about cultures as well. So our mindsets, the way we lead, really will determine the culture that we create, whether that's within our teams or within our entire organizations. So a little background on myself. I've written actually now 27 books on leadership, business growth, professional, personal development. I'm a leadership mentor and coach. I've actually trained, coached, or mentored over 12,000 leaders across the world in the last 35 years. And I've lived most of my life outside the United States. Lived in Singapore for 21 years, Australia for 12 years, and Mexico City for 3 years. And that's all as an adult, so that none of that, I was born and raised in the United States, but my background is very international. But now I'm back in the United States. I'm living in sunny and not quite warm today, Phoenix. So let's talk about what is a mindset. And a mindset, very simply, is how we interpret what we see and what we experience. We could both experience the same conversation. We could both experience the same event, and we will have different interpretations of it, different perceptions of it. So it's our perspective and it's our thoughts, and we bring that with us into the business world. We bring that into our organization. Quite frankly, we bring that into our personal lives, into our family lives as well. So let me talk about how those mindsets can elevate performance. My mindset about leadership is very simple. I think leadership is art. There are some scientific principles around leadership, formulas, functions, way of being a leader to be a successful leader, but really it's an art. It's how we practice that art. And in my mind, it's the art of achieving progress through the involvement and the actions of others. And you notice I don't say results. And the reason I don't say results is that if we focus too much on results, we tend to burn out our people. We burn out our teams. And a good leader understands that, yes, we want to achieve our 2024 results. We want to achieve our fourth quarter results. But if we only get 95% or 93% there, that could still be good because the team is functioning and can start the first quarter next year working together, collaborating together, innovating together. But if we focus so much on the results and we burn people out, we're going to find out in the next quarter, first of all, we lose maybe 20% of our team because they go elsewhere. And they're so burned out, or there's so much drama and conflict between them that they're not functional. And so our first quarter results are going to go out the door anyway, even though we can happily achieve this year's results. So it's about achieving progress in my mind, not just results. So I define leadership very simply. A leader is anyone who directly or indirectly leads people. Doesn't matter what your title is. Doesn't matter if you're a supervisor, a manager, a team leader, executive, an entrepreneur. If you're leading people, and quite frankly, we all lead at least one person in our lives, and that's ourselves. So in many ways, we're all leaders. So the four critical elements, and I won't cover all these today, but the four critical mindsets that will elevate performance is, what is your mindset about leading people or managing people? And I'm going to pause and let you just reflect on that just a little bit, but really after the presentation, I'm hoping everyone in the audience who watches this on YouTube or on LinkedIn later will pause and use the holiday season and think about, what is your mindset? What is your role as a people manager or a people leader? Trust. We've heard trust talked about a little bit. Culture of appreciation. How can you create a culture of appreciation within the team that you lead? And how can you create harmony in your workplace? And I know a lot of people laugh at me when I talk about harmony in the workplace, that there is no such thing. But let me tell you something. With the people I work with, when we do create harmony within our work groups, the results are phenomenal. So here's a question to you. Is it your job to manage people? Thank you, Ollie. Ollie's shaking his head. So obviously it's a leading question. I'm leading the witness here. People don't want to be managed, and they certainly don't want to be micromanaged. And some of you heard me say several times, no one wakes up in the morning and says, I can't wait to be managed by my boss today. And certainly no one's ever said, I can't wait to be micromanaged today. People want to be led. They want to be motivated. They want to be trusted. Now, look, you can argue that there are people who don't. They don't want to be led. They don't want to. They just want to work, come in, punch a clock, do a job, leave. Well, that's fine. That's probably 5, 6, 7% of your workforce, depending on the size of your organization. So I asked, do you want to spend your leadership mindset, your leadership mental prowess on those 6, 7%? Or do you want to focus on the 93, 94, 95% of the workforce who do want to be led, who do want to be motivated, who do want to be given opportunities to grow their skill sets and their decision-making responsibilities and their decision-making capabilities? Because people do want to be involved in decisions. Now, I do not advocate that this is not a communal process. Not everyone has to be involved in your 5-year strategic plan or your 2025 strategic plan, but everyone needs to be involved in the decisions around the implementation of your strategies, particularly if they're involved in that implementation. So to get buy-in for how they're going to achieve your goals, they need to be involved in those decisions and involved in the decisions around implementation. So people they need to be coached, they need to be mentored, and they need to be empowered. They need to be unshackled from directives. And by that, I mean when somebody tells you how to do your job. A good people-centric leader will tell you what the goal is, what success looks like, not how to get there, but where you want to get to. And let them figure out the how to accomplish their work. So this is the mindset change. And part of my goal for this presentation today, closing this wonderful day, Ed, by the way, great conversations, great presentations throughout the morning here, but is to change your mindset in certain areas. And the first mindset change is to think about that you manage things, you manage processes, people, projects, and procedures. You don't manage people. You lead people. So taking that mental mindset that my job is to manage people, no. Yes, maybe 10 or 15% of the time you need to manage people because they're doing something wrong and you have to put that manager hat on. But hopefully 80, 85% of the time, 90% of the time, you're realizing that you need to lead people. And that means empowering them, motivating them, trusting them. Because you're leading human beings. You're not leading assets. You're not leading resources. In fact, I would suggest that we change the name of the HR department from something other than human resources, because that would be a mindset change. You know, you're leading human beings. You're not leading staff. You're not leading workers. You're not leading head counts. So one of the worst terminologies we've ever come up with. Because our priority as leaders is to develop people. So I know when I was a leader, I didn't have this mindset. I grew up in the managerial ranks during the times of the Jack Welches of the world and the John Reeds of the world and the Fortune magazines that had these great leaders on the cover. And they would all say something during the interview, something about, my job is to get the most out of our people. Well, it's no longer about getting the most out of your people. It's about putting the most into them and then reaping the rewards for doing so. And by putting into them, that's the mentoring, that's the coaching, that's helping them make better decisions. Because as leaders, we are now responsible for workplace well-being, which means reducing stress and reducing drama. And we're also responsible for employee wellness, the physical, mental, and emotional wellness of the people on our teams, the people in our organizations. And so that's a mindset change. Because I believe one of the greatest gifts a leader can give to any team member is to help them find and grow their talents. So it's not managing versus leading, which is a concept we often see. It's about managing and leading and understanding when to be a manager and when to be a leader of your people. So let's talk about leadership mindsets that create desired cultures, because that's, again, part of your mindset. And the culture of trust is so important. I had the pleasure of talking with Steve Cadigan, LinkedIn's first chief human resource officer, who wrote a wonderful book called Work Quick. And I highly, highly recommend this if you're a leader in an organization. And he said, in a world of constant change and disruption, what people want more than anything else is to be in an environment of trust, working with people they trust. And unfortunately, for the majority of people, that's not true. Research across the globe confirms a lack of trust in the workplace. In fact, trust in one's boss traditionally is less than 50%, and sometimes it's as low as 35%, depending on which research study you read. But it's a two-way street. It's not just that employees, team members don't trust management. The lack of trust by managers and leaders in their employees reduces inclusion, induces productivity, it reduces innovation, creativity, and results. Because who wants to bring their productivity? Who wants to bring their innovation? Who wants to bring their ideas to a leader who doesn't trust them? People will keep that to themselves. They won't share their best ideas, and therefore we don't get innovation. And obviously, on the other side of the equation, if a leader's not trusted by the people they lead, nothing else matters, quite frankly. So the mindset change here. Start all your relationships. Go into 2025, reevaluate your workplace relationships, and start them on the basis of trust. I've seen so many people that I've coached and mentored over the years who either change companies, go into a new organization, or within their own organization get moved from leading one team to leading another. And one of their first sentences when they have their team meeting and get introduced as the new boss, the new manager, the new head of the department or division or whatever it is, they say something like, here's how you can earn my trust. Well, I'm sorry, that does not work coming out of the COVID environment. Better to walk in there and say, I trust you. Now, here's how you can lose my trust. Don't be truthful. Blame others. Try to hide a mistake under the carpet. In other words, this is a way of creating that psychological safety that we saw earlier in the day, that presentation, by saying, I trust you. Here's what you can do to lose my trust. And then combine that with appreciation. Appreciation and gratitude are two of the most important levers that any leader has. But unfortunately, they are also two of the least used levers that most supervisors, managers, leaders, and entrepreneurs do not use. Because the attitude is, we pay you to do a good job. Why do I have to show you appreciation? Well, think about this. When was the last time you received what I call fortifying feedback? Others call it positive feedback. And when was the last time you gave fortifying or positive feedback to your employees? And I'm not talking about the annual performance review where you bookend it and say, you've done a really good job here, you're a super great employee, but here's all the things you're doing wrong. And then you end it with the other end of the bookend that says, but I know you can do a great job and we really appreciate you being on our team. That's not fortifying feedback. Because here's why it's important. A 10-year study of over 200,000 managers and employees show that almost 80% of employees who quit their jobs cite the lack of appreciation as a key reason. 79%, almost 80%. And even worse, 65 said they were not recognized even once by their leaders or supervisors over the previous 12 months. So you're working for an individual, and over 12 months, they don't recognize once the effort you're putting in. They don't show their appreciation, the gratitude. No wonder people are leaving their jobs. Who wants to work for somebody? Who wants to have a personal relationship with somebody who doesn't show appreciation? And even more recently, HubSpot, this came out last year, 2023, their research showed that 69% of employees would work harder if their efforts were just better recognized. So it's pretty clear that the lack of appreciation was cited as one of the top contributing factors in nearly every study into the causes of the Great Resignation. Now, here's the bad news. I've read several articles recently predicting that Great Resignation 2.0 will start in January 2025, partly because of these return to office demands, partly because people haven't changed. People have slipped into the old leadership style. People are not people-centered leader, and people are going to leave again. They're going to keep searching out, seeking these people-centric leaders. So the mindset change here is recognize efforts and then reward results. So often we wait until the end of a project to recognize the effort and the results that people put in. So my philosophy, what I encourage people I coach and mentor is that if it's a 6 weeks or longer project, you need to be recognizing their efforts every 3 to 4 weeks. The effort that they're putting in to work towards the result that you want. And then at the end, yes, you want to reward that result. Because as Mary Kay Ash said, everyone wants to be appreciated. So if you appreciate someone, don't keep it a secret. And then lastly, a culture of harmony. And this requires what I've been talking about. This requires trust, respect, the collaboration, sharing of ideas and information. So when I talk about workplace harmony, well, I'm talking about flow. When everything is clicking. Yeah, there might be a little bit of drama, but it's not as prevalent as you find in non-harmonious situations. So we've all had flow in our lives. Whether you're working on a car, you're remodeling your house, you're painting, in my case, writing, you get into flow, you lose track of time, everything's working. That's the way, that is the definition of workplace harmony. And there is flow within your team, not the entire organization, just the team that you lead. And you've got that psychological safety that we saw before. It's okay to admit a mistake, learn from mistakes. It's okay to trust one another. It's okay to throw out ideas. You won't be ridiculed. And this results in the inclusion and belonging that will enhance employee engagement as well as employee retention. Now, interesting, the ladies didn't reference this, which is, I'm glad, because otherwise I have to take the slide out here, but Google did research on successful teams, and this came out 2 years ago, 2022. And it said that the number one factor for successful teams is that team members feel safe to take risks and to be vulnerable in front of each other, to throw out ideas, to understand that not every idea is going to be accepted, but it's okay to throw out those ideas. They feel confident that no one on their team will embarrass them, will punish them for admitting a mistake, or for asking a question, or for offering a new idea. So that's workplace harmony. All this to me combines in my philosophy that I call human leadership, which interestingly, and I want to just refer to my notes from earlier, that World Economic Forum research that Ken Oler shared with us, 5 of the 10 business top skills for 2027 are all encapsulated in my book, Human Leadership, which came out 2 years ago. And that's leadership and social influence, resiliency, flexibility, and agility, curiosity and lifelong learning, an important aspect of human leadership, motivation and self-motivation, self-awareness, again, key aspects of the book, and empathy and active listening. So I'm very pleased that what I wrote about was collaborated and unknowingly in the World Economic Forum research. Because the benefits of this will be engaged team members, increased productivity, higher workforce retention, less churn and turnover of your workplace. You'll have empowered individuals and teams. You'll have reduced employee attrition, reduced presenteeism, with people just showing up and just doing the minimum they need to do to get a paycheck. And you'll have fewer sick days. And the other benefit will be, if you combine this with Dr. Ken Lloyd's book, your performance reviews will be so much easier and so much better, and you can use all the great phrases that he shares with you in his book. So thank you, Ed, for this opportunity to share my philosophy on leadership, where it's going. I throw that slide up for anyone who wants to contact me and talk more about it. I welcome the opportunity, or everything's covered in the book, which received the gold medal from the Nonfiction Authors Association, something I'm very personally proud of. And so I thank you. And with that, a little Philip Berry thing here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is just a great way to summarize and end. And I really am grateful, very grateful for today.
It's great.
For you guys to hang out. It's just great. Yvonne, so what's new with you? Family's okay?
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
good, good. Glad to hear. Last time we spoke, it wasn't that way. Yeah, so I'm happy for you. Great. Okay, so a little bit of news. We're going to do another Asia. Good morning, Asia Pacific. On December 19, 5 p.m. California time. Will be December 20, 9 a.m. Across Japan area, and Hong Kong, Singapore. I'm building that audience right now, those participations, and Michael Piker will return, as will Amiko from All Japan. And we have 2 in Singapore, and I believe we're going to have one, at least one in Hong Kong participating. And so it's all about international business relationships, establishing, finding, developing. Ali, I welcome you to think about joining that. I don't know whether you care about Asia Pacific.
I love care about humanity, and wherever you are, and once we start transitioning into Mars and all of whatever, as long as they have the heart and the mind, we're there. I love, if I may, I love what Stephen just shared. I love every slide. It really reminded me of this, and if you don't mind if I share that, the best KPI to measure the health in an organization It's the length of time it takes to have a candid conversation and still feel safe.
Nice.
It's so it resonated with me so much that I mean everything and it's one thing about what you mentioned, Stephen, about the language, the human resources. It's amazing. I mean, the relationship between language and the culture of the organization is so important. I mean, you look at a long time ago, it used to be, oh, how many belly buttons you have in your organization. It went to head counts. Okay, so there's improvement there, right? But what about heart counts? We rarely look for that emotion, that the feeling, how the employees feel. And forget the name of the author, but in the book, Grit talks about the 3 reasons that people leave organizations is there's lack of belonging. And that's what mentioned about the humany, having the belonging, feeling good. The second one being competent. You know, I can be, and then the third one is being autonomous. I can make a decision. So those 3 things that really get people to leave. If you get the people to be empowered, as Stephen mentioned, and everybody else second, is that being having that autonomy, have that belonging. I'm part of the team, and also help me do my job better. A lot of people feel like, okay, I feel I'm empowered, I feel good about this, but I can't do my job well. So they're going to be compared to everybody else. So maybe I should go somewhere else. I should do something else. So, but I'd love to be part of that event. I never you know, miss deliberately any of the discussions that you have, even when it's a food poisoning. So
Good. Yes, Christian. Oh, I thought you had your hand up earlier.
No, I didn't, but I still have something I wanted to say, and that's I've been thinking about the 8 or so percent that Stephen mentioned that just want to come in and do their job and get out, collect a paycheck. I think these people are particularly fascinating because they, even though you might want to coach them and develop them, they may not want that all that much. They want to just be left alone, but at the same time, they also want to be appreciated and motivated. So in a way, it's, you know, don't discount the 8%. I know why you talked about them in that context, Stephen. I fully get it. I agree with that. But they're very difficult to lead, I found, because you don't really know what they ultimately want until you've gained their trust. They're not there for their career at all. They want to be appreciated though, and they want to be appreciated maybe more than the people that are there for their career.
No, I totally agree with you, Christian, and they certainly don't want to be overlooked. The key thing is that you're right. If they're like that, then leverage them. Every team needs those. Sometimes they're the most dependable people. They're the ones who don't call in sick. They come in, they do their job, they get paid, and they find their purpose in life outside work, outside the organization. That's fine. And I often I use what you just said. You know, I often tell people you can motivate them, but you don't need to coach them and mentor them. You don't need to talk to them about career paths. They're not interested in a career path. That's fine. Utilize their talents and skills, but you're absolutely correct. Appreciate them for what the value is that they bring to the organization. And that's so often what people don't do, is tell them what the value is. And that value is consistency in many ways.
Congratulations.
The other thing, Ollie, you're right, Ollie. I mean, in my book, it's a little controversial, but in the book, I say I advocate changing the human resources department to the human capability department, and taking all the operational aspects, which are important, all the, you know, the forms, the policies and procedures, and putting that under something called human resources operations. But then finding another part that's talking about human capability. They're the ones who are helping other leaders mentor and coach and develop people.
Well, about 10 years ago, Ali spoke at one of my meetings. I think it was in Nordstrom's or someplace.
in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that's when the first time I heard from you the following: show that you care. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, here we're investing some of the most important thing we have, which is time, right? If I did not feel that I'm being cared for and I enjoy caring for folks, I wouldn't be here. None of us would be here if we don't feel that we're helping and getting help. And that's the essence of being a human being, right? So absolutely, absolutely. I think the caring piece, knowledge. I've had situations where we send the most brilliant, technically strong people to go work with customers, and within like 2 weeks, they were asked to come back. Said, no, we don't want them. We love them. They can solve all the problems, but that's not what we want. That's not the only thing we want.
So how about changing HR to TC?
TEC.
TC.
TC.
Talent care.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's
Ken, what do you think?
Oh, yeah, the word talent is used much more in the HR field than it used to be. But going way back, it was personnel management. So
Yeah.
then they wanted to humanize it. Next step was human resources. And the next one will be, as Stephen is saying, and as you're saying, something to do with talent and caring and focusing on people as opposed to anything dealing with the processes, forms, and all the other detailed stuff that might be there. That's all important. But certainly the function on the human side of it, frankly, on humanity is really where it should be going. It's interesting. I would like to see Stephen's book really applied. And I know we don't get political in this show, but I'm hearing of leadership styles that are calling for people to be sycophants and don't disagree with the boss. And if you do, you're out of here. You're disloyal. See, to me, if someone has, if you will, criticism of what I'm doing, that's not being disloyal. I regard that as loyalty. They're being open, they're being honest, they're trying to help me just as I'm trying to help them, as opposed to a climate in which either you go along with the boss says or you're out of here. And humanity is the exact opposite way. It's a totally different mindset. And I think in addition to the private sector, where it has just great applications, I think in the governmental sector, particularly as we move into 2025, that kind of thinking and mindset and those kinds of actions, I think would really help the individuals who are performing it, and would help our country. So I think it's that important of a potential role that it has. I try to focus on some of that in my book, even before I knew the word humanity. But certainly in getting from the standpoint of performance appraisals and phrases for dummies to focus on continuous feedback, which is not just feedback, it's feed forward, it's coaching, it's development, it's two-way communication, it's listening. It's not this annual ritual that occurs in December that nobody likes, not the individual in the management position, nor the employee, but it is bringing in those kinds of components of a productive, fair, equitable, open, receptive mindset that really will make the difference. And I certainly hope going forward, my hope for 2025 is to see more of that kind of thinking in every organization.
I'm sorry if I have to follow. I love what Ken said, and it reminded me of, corporate, probably across the world, is they deal from a virus called VP. Not the vice president. I'm not saying that. Very important. But the vicious path. So what I have seen, and very briefly, I'm going to share that you look at a company and you have new employees that are coming in for the first 5 years, they're new. If they don't have that environment that Kristen and Stephen mentioned about the psychological safety, they're not going to rock the boat. I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm going to learn the language of that culture. I'm going to do what my manager wants and my leader, and that's it. So that's the vicious path. It's 3 stages. The first one is the new employee, 5 years, 1 to 5 years. I'm not going to rock the boat. And then the second one is much longer. It goes between 5 to like about 20 years. People who are, yes, I know how to do the job. I know how to make an impact, but I'm not given that psychological safety. But I'm not going to rock the boat. Why? Because I'm married now and I have kids and I want to send them to college and I'd better just go with the flow. speak the same language. They're dealing from the middle of the vicious path. And the last one, which is equally important, if probably not more than important than any of the first two, is I've been through this for a long time and I'm about to retire. I have 5 years where I can start my own company. Why do I need to rock the boat? This path is you're taking the energy, taking the future, taking the most important thing of a human, of an employee, of a leader. And they drop their grit, they park their creativity and innovation at home after they come home and they start working on their thing, and they pick it up after they retire. Companies that know how to treat their employees as human beings and promote the human leadership are going to be way more at an advantage than other companies. So I just love what I just heard.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
We
so our goal is
appreciate
to
you.
get rid of the VP virus. So that's the thing. That's the part.
Okay, I'll be working on all these shows and stay tuned.
Great talking with you guys. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
To
Thank you.
all of you, take care. Be well.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.